Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's time to re-review Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie otherwise known as Sonic Movie 3, otherwise known as the Shadow Movie. My name is Ethan, and with me here to walk this lonely road once more, as always, is Devin. How's it going?
Why won't you leave me alone? Or whatever he says, something like that.
He does say something like that. Yes, yes. Devin, you and I watched this movie when it came out in theaters,
We
and
did.
we reviewed it. Glowing review. Everyone loved the review, and even though the review might have had some criticisms of the movie, and we've watched the other Sonic movies several times. We usually do a review 1 week after the movie came out. Um, this was definitely that. It's not 3 weeks. It was 1 week. And we're doing it again because it's important. Like we're leading up to the movie, and there's some hype going on with it, and we have predictions, and there's things we want to see. And you watch a movie the first time is different the second time, regardless of if there was twists or whatever. It's just we're coming into it knowing what happens. Okay, let's pay attention to some things that might have came by too quick because we were anticipating things or whatnot.
Sometimes things get so hyped, and then you're just like, "Whoa, it's like so much going on," and
Yeah,
I like doing this a second time because I feel like we have our discussion on it, or maybe we mentioned something. Oh, I missed that, whatever it is. We go in with like that intent, and we to me it comes back, and we're like, "Hey, did we have we changed our opinions on some things? Did we maybe solidify something for us?" And granted, we will review this forever as
yeah,
as like the first one, which is going to be our like sixth review coming up or
seventh, I
seventh.
think.
Jeez. But yeah, no, I like doing this the second time within like a weekish, just because 3 weeks maybe in a short time frame, just to see. Yeah, because we build up to this. We first heard that Jim Carrey was back like almost 2 years ago, and like there's a journey with this, and it'd be weird to just be like, hey, we watched it once, it was great, okay, see you later, have a good day, on to the next thing for another 3 years or whatever. um yeah, no, I think this is a good way of doing it. And yeah, we saw some hate. We saw some hate for how dare we have a couple critiques and criticisms of a third installment in a movie. But Ethan, it's a kids movie, so
It
we're not, our
is. It
opinions are
is.
invalid
Why
actually.
don't we get into it? We're not gonna like go through the movie like we did the first time. We're gonna talk about the things we want to talk about with this movie. So obviously, it goes without saying, spoilers for the movie. Also, recommend you watch the other review first, because we're gonna be referencing that review, and also just like this is a part two. This is a sequel to that other review, so it's definitely worth watching that first. You could pause right now, and then now you can unpause. Okay, and now you can watch the rest of this. I want to talk about the fact that, like, yes, we had a lot of criticisms of the movie when we first watched it, and I want to reiterate again that comes from the fact that we wanted to like it. We expected a lot of things from it, and we were hoping maybe for some cool surprises and whatnot. So like when we come to the point where we're criticizing a lot of things, like yes, we and so does a lot of other people. To be fair, it is not just an us thing. Could do better with just having a huge chunk of saying all the things it does right, but for the most part. We did kind of say all the things that we thought the movie did really well. And because we really like the thing and we like the series, we are more critical of a lot of things because we know it can do better and it can be better. So I will say, watching the second time, I will say this: I went into the movie dreading a couple things. Like, it's gonna be too much Jim Carrey in this movie, and I didn't find the dance all that funny that first time. I was like, can we move on, please? That type of thing. Some of my complaints the first time around aren't as big anymore to me the second time. Second time around, I'm like, no, this is more fun of a movie than I was giving it credit for back then. I just still don't think that the things people are like, this was so hype, were so hype. I think they were so hype to people because they were a thing at all and not like, well, they could have done it better. Again, I know I'm going to let Devin go ahead in a second here, but I'll just end with like that the Super Sonic and Super Shadow fight was a little boring. The fact that they were doing it at all is cool, but like I'm not like insanely wowed about it. They cut away too many times to the Eggmans doing their shit. And they got more screen time during all these fights than obviously Sonic and Shadow did. But like there's no choreography to the fight, and it's just a lot of like punching, and like people will say Dragon Ball. There's more in Dragon Ball with that type of stuff. So I have some complaints still, but overall, I will say I got in to it a little bit higher than I was the first time. How about you, Devin?
Yeah, I think I liked this overall. Like I felt coming out of the theater, I'm like, you know what? Like, yeah, we were. I don't want to say we were like really hard on it, but like we definitely criticized it more in our first episode than probably talked about the good things. But I think it's a lot easier to talk about good things, and I think more difficult to talk about the things we didn't like, especially in something we do like in general. Um, I remember you even mentioning like I still think this is the best of the three.
Yeah, I still say
Um,
that. Still think that
and
rather.
but if you watch the review, maybe compared to like the first movie, you're probably like, well, what do you mean? Because y'all like probably in that first review, uh, talked about how much we love this movie and how like surprising it was, right? Um, and yeah, so going in, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna really try to take a step back and like, but also think about our discussion we had, but also, I we've been posting clips on like social media and stuff, and some people are talking on there, oh, the music was great. And I'm like, see, that's one thing I feel like, and I was watching in the Dolby theater, which has the better sound and everything, and I felt like the music was very muddy at times, or didn't like it was supposed to be a big impact, but it was like I'm too focused on the action. I can't hear, this theme that's been reworked to be more cinematic than a video game soundtrack. So like I try to go in with that like in mind, being like, okay, I'm gonna really try to pay attention to like audio, like and music, because even the first time seeing it during that battle between Shadow and Sonic, ends on the moon and whatever, and like, hey, now we got to stop the arc or whatever, or the pod, whatever it's really they
They
call
don't
it.
give it a name in the movie, and it wouldn't be an arc. It wouldn't be called the arc, just the way
But
this
whatever.
story is.
But
But
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then like I remember that's the part where they play the song, right? And that's where everyone was like, "Oh, that was so hype." And I'm like, I remember we said in that review, it felt almost out of place, or like
Because they
it was a
start
weird
in like
part in.
the second half of a verse.
Yeah,
Um,
they start in the middle of the song, and also the impact it just doesn't work for
they
whatever
tried
reason with
doing
the
it like two or
scene.
three times during that too. Where like, yeah, here's the impact again with the song. It's like I feel like you could have played the whole song from the beginning. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah. Either play the whole song and then because it ends at one point of them looking at the camera straight up, like fourth wall breaking, them looking at the camera, and there's an explosion, right? And like that's when the song actually ends. But it was like three different segments we got out of the course of 15 minutes. It felt like, but anyways, I say all this to say I thought the pacing was a lot better this time. Maybe it's because I knew what was coming up. And the parts that I didn't like as much didn't feel as slow as they did before. Maybe because that first watch, you're like, okay, I'm trying to get to the thing I really want. Let's get through this.
Yeah,
But watching it as a complete almost in a more complete way and knowing what's coming, I'm like, okay, this wasn't as long as I thought it was before. Or
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
this
I'm
this
with you.
joke this joke maybe wasn't for me, and like I found it even cringy, but like, oh, it's fine. Like like whatever. Like I'm not. It wasn't as like ugh as maybe the first time, and maybe that's like almost. It feels like just accepting it more. Just watching this, I felt that's what I was doing. I was like, this is what it is, and it does match a little bit with the other movies. Like I still think the comedy was as much as there was more Jim Carrey, and I kind of disagree. I liked the Jim Carrey parts for the most part because I think all the other characters' comedy wasn't as big as before, or at least wasn't hitting as much for me before, compared to the first two movies. I'm talking about like Sonic's jokes, and even like some of the Wachowski jokes, and it was hard for me to like kind of even in that first discussion we have. I'm like, well, it's hard for me to tell. Like maybe like the jokes are too PG-13 or too even PG. Um, and someone put on Twitter coincidentally a clip from the first movie where Eggman meets Tom Wachowski for the first time,
Saw that
and he
same.
has
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and he says the quote of like he makes a joke about being breastfed, and he's like, nice, and like that is super risque compared to I feel like anything we saw, even in the second movie, but definitely in this movie, like there's nothing pushing the boundaries in this movie on a comedic sense outside of like Jim Carrey or Eggman saying, "Oh, you stole them from my egg sack," but like that's not still like
A spider
compared to
egg
like
sack. Like that's yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
still nothing compared to someone making a joke about being breastfed, and he's like, "Oh yeah," like just like I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there was definitely like, and I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Like the kids are coming out for this movie probably more than they were that first movie. That first movie was a little bit more safer in a way, but the big thing probably for a lot of people to even see that movie is like, I like Jim Carrey. I grew up with Jim Carrey. I don't know anything about Sonic that much outside of maybe I played it when in 1997. Sure, I'll give this a shot. Everyone's saying it's fine. And Jim Carrey, gives you that comedy that you're expecting from him. And then there was actually also great comedy with um from James Marsden and whatnot in that movie. And I still think that first movie is a little bit more comedic to me than the other two. But yeah, that was like one big point I noticed for me was like I accepted the comedy more in the third one, but I still kind of, if anything, I solidified my opinion on like they toned it down still and tried to make this more of an action movie with Marvel level comedy,
Sure. Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I just hope they don't keep going this direction because by that fourth, and if we ever get a fifth and a sixth, it might start to
Well,
really
think
suck.
about it. Like the first movie, especially, even a lot in the second movie as well. Like you can't really have that Marvel action too much with these Sonic, Tails, Knuckles type of characters interacting with humans. They rarely touch each other, to be honest. Like because that's just a little bit. It's a lot of effort to make that look realistic, but it's really easy to have like Sonic and whatnot and them beat up like Eggman robots and stuff like that. But like once you start introducing more and more of these Sonic characters, then you can have them fight each other, and that type of stuff. So then you do get a lot more of that action, and I'm with you with that. Because a lot of it felt just like fine enough. Like this time around, I'm like, oh yeah, they probably knew there's some iconic Shadow stuff that's really only from like one element of it. So yes, let's give them the motorcycle and the gun at the same time, so then we can move on from it. You know, I will just say like the Eggman stuff went by faster for me. Like you were saying, some parts of it went by faster. But honestly, did kind of solidify for me as well. It's not necessarily the Jim Carrey stuff. I don't really think I liked any of the jokes or anything like that specifically the character of Gerald Robotnik was doing. I was noticing a lot more this time that like I just really don't care for this guy. I almost kind of wish that like they don't use him. I don't know. They didn't do too much with because obviously the character of our Robotnik, Ivo Robotnik, going through the kind of like he meets like someone he really admires now, and then he's being betrayed, and he's learning from that. But they could have done something where it was like, hey, this is how you treat Stone. They kind of do, but it's only from the perspective of Stone, and they don't do anything with that. I almost feel like there was a scene cut because once they leave Stone behind, he's not used at all until they need someone to look up at the sky, be like, "Oh my god, the laser!" And then, like, obviously the TV stuff at the end where he's talking to Stone to give us the confirmation that he has put Stone in the friend zone, which could have been a
Right.
joke too, by the way, which would have been funny. But like, there's that where like I feel like this character they didn't use that at all element of it, and like I get it, like this is about Sonic and Shadow, and I also understand my complaint about for the last part of the movie is I kind of wanted like the stupid robot arm stuff. I wanted that cut completely, or re-edited in a way where it's like all of the Eggman stuff, and then all of the Sonic and Shadow stuff, even if it's the same shots and scenes, just what you have already would have made that pacing better. I understand I wanted less of Eggman in that part, but at the same time, for Eggman's story it would have been a lot better if like we really got to see more of him like definitely like say no I am not being played because there's that moment where the hand phone rings and it plays one of the very few like I think clever Sonic references where it's like a bit of an Eggman song from Sonic Adventure 2, whether it was his theme song or one of the levels. I can't put it to place, but I know it's from that. There's that
Yeah,
ring,
yeah.
and he's like, "You're just jealous," but I'm like, I wanted him to be shown the fact and deny it. So then he just that there's the bridge there. You know what I mean? Of like, 100% agree with like, wait a second, what? I wanted that part there. That would have made his story a lot better. But I will say, uh, I did not find him the Robotnik stuff as annoying this time around because I think I did what you're saying of like we already know what happens. So like I'm not just like get through this. I want the cool stuff because I already know what I'm getting. That did go by a lot faster for me the second time. The only Joker I'm like, no, I don't. This was not funny. I also don't really fully understand where some of this is coming from. I'm like, what is this person even thinking when they're saying this is the knuckles break the glass stuff? I'm like, but like, what? It just did not work for me. And they kept saying it over and over again. I'm like, what is the glass of emergency? Because you break the glass to grab something to use in case of emergency, not to like, I'm going to break the glass of your front door. I don't know. That did not make any sense to
Yeah,
me.
because he just punches a hole through the thing
Why couldn't
to
you have done
get
that?
there.
Whatever at the
And
beginning.
yeah, it's a little bit of a plot hole of like why don't you just if he was that powerful, because their whole reason they're like we have to infiltrate was so that we didn't have to like go through the shield that will evaporate us. But if you could just
Yeah.
punch through it the whole time, kind of seems like maybe you should just did that. I
We
mean, I get
also,
to the sense
sorry.
that you don't want to like cause a big scene or anything either. I
Sure, and then have
get
the
that,
public
but
distrust them, but like,
and I
are they
like,
thinking that
but for the
much?
sake of the plot, I was like, no, this is because that was one of the few things that surprised me. And the first time we watched it was like, oh, I was not expecting there to be like a mini heist kind of plot point in this
Yeah.
film, from the trailer or anything. So I was like surprised that we didn't just get, that was one of our complaints with like the Sonic 2 trailer was we like immediately were like, okay, we see all
Yeah.
3X
Yeah.
in the trailer. That's kind of
And the
disappointing. Doesn't
trailers for this one misled us because we saw the shot of Tom and Maddie in gun outfits and thought, oh, they work there. Like, no,
yeah.
obviously they don't. Um, I will say, too, another thing the movie skipped too far ahead to do is the whole gun blaming Sonic, or like thinking, oh, we can trust them. It just felt like this is what we wanted, so very easily put together the pieces for that not miscommunication, what's the word? Misunderstanding of the thing of like, yes, Walters dies. And it is very funny that I guess the last part we'll see of that actor in these movies is him not actually being him because it was
Him not
Tom
being him and being
disguised.
killed by Shadow.
Yeah,
Technically.
yeah.
Yeah.
He dies in the Chow Garden Tokyo Cafe thing, and then then they just leave because we can't trust a gun, and we need to figure out what's going on first. I don't know. And then
They should have
what's her
just made
name
him
from
injured,
Jessica
by the
Jones
way.
comes in, and then I don't like the second time around, and I did not feel this way the first time, and I knew what obviously happens the second time around, so I'm not getting any confusion here. But like watching it the second time, I'm like, I could easily see someone thinking like, "Oh, is she a bad guy? Like, is she trying to like do some subversion within the organization she's in?" And like, no, she is just like ultra commander boss. Like, I need to take charge. But came to a very quick conclusion, which made me think she was being opportunistic about the situation. Um, about that stuff. So there's some story elements like that where I'm like, we went too fast with this, and I understand there's a lot of pieces in this movie. And ultimately, what the fans want to see the most of is the Sonic team, the Sonic characters doing Sonic stuff. And I understand it's almost hypocritical for us to be like, yes, um, there's too much going on, and I wanted to see more Sonic stuff, and then also be the guys who are like, but I'm happy and glad that they're proud of the fact that we have human characters in these movies, and just because we're getting more sequels doesn't mean we're getting rid of these guys. Like, yes, we are going to find a way to bring in the sister-in-law, and her new husband or whatever in the movie, and even in a cameo. Yes, we're going to find a way to use Tom and Maddie in the story. Like, yes, there are all these human characters in it, so I get it. And again, this is where like, hey, if the movie's longer, then yes, you have more time to do that stuff. I guess you do need to make a choice now moving forward, and we'll talk about predictions for the fourth movie maybe later in this episode because I made a prediction that I made a goofy realization about after the fact. Because like they could easily in the next movie, I could easily see there being less human characters interacting with like less of a ratio in terms of the characters on screen doing stuff between there being CG characters and humans. I don't know. Was there anything like that struck you in the same ways as me, or
Well, I was just gonna say with the commander, like I guess he isn't dead because that wouldn't if he was, then she would have known that that was a body double.
well, no, because she said, Commander Yor. He says alive. Yes. So she's
Oh,
assuming
does he?
that he
Okay,
she did
yeah.
die. Now, granted,
They
movies
kind of
do
just it's
things
kind
where
of
like
crazy
if
that
we
they just
don't
kill him
show the
off though.
funeral, then she didn't die. Because this is the same thing we have with Fast and Furious, where it's like, listen, I understand no one likes this lady, and we don't have to like this lady because of her politics. But Gal Gadot's character, because they didn't show a funeral means that they can say she didn't die. For Fast and Furious 9 or 10 or
I
11,
mean,
Jesus, however many
to
there are,
be
that type
fair
of thing.
that's soap opera logic where of
Absolutely.
that level of
But it's
like
just like doing that one
yeah
thought of like, well, they would have had a funeral, and it wasn't there was no
yeah
body left type of thing. Anyway, so that's
because
the same
it
thing for this. They could easily bring him back,
yeah
and I want him back. Again, I'm being a hypocrite here saying I hated the fact that like we didn't get too much of a Sonic versus Shadow as we could have. The scenes, especially when they're fighting in space, were too zoomed out, so that it really just feels like they're just flying through things, and I can complain about that stuff. And like the one thing that would solve that is something I still want in the movie anyway, which is these human characters. Yes, I want the Olive Garden guy back in it again. I like that guy. He can only be in it in one scene, but bring him back type of thing. So I guess what I'm ultimately for my whole arc here for the second review to sum up all my thoughts is like I liked it more than I did the first time, and I still think it is the best one because I think back to that second movie and I'm like, the climax of that movie, we knew it was coming, and they didn't do anything super surprising beyond, yes, actually doing supersonic, which we could kind of assume anyway. It felt very tame and expected rather. It was a little bit easier to follow with the CG fight stuff. This movie felt bigger, more exciting, and that in and of itself, for what these movies are trying to be, does cement it higher for me. A lot of my criticisms aren't as big of a deal anymore, and I like the movie a lot still. How about you? That's my summation for my
no I
thoughts.
mean a lot of my thoughts are the same. I think it's just because I'm okay. I like Jim Carrey a lot. I like Eggman a lot, and I didn't mind the kind of the the two Robotniks and whatnot. But it just felt like they didn't have enough time for those. Like if he's gonna be the two villains, I think they should just did that and not have Shadow in it at all, or you have Shadow and
Yeah,
Eggman still in it. Because I really liked our idea of like, what if they are teaming up for most of the movie, and then if you're still sticking with this idea of hey, the story needs to end every movie. I know we were on the record of saying,
make this a
hey,
part one.
make you didn't even call it part one, but you doesn't
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
has to be resolved. Maybe Shadow and Sonic's relationship is resolved by end of the first movie, but then Eggman has done something so catastrophic or is threatening something so catastrophic that we'll find out what happens in the fourth one. Like
Right. And then that could
you
lead
know,
to or we said the idea of like or the unresolved stuff is Shadow specific he can deal with in his own movie or series as well.
right,
And
right,
that's also the business brain
I
of like how do we
I still
expand this? I get it, but
yeah, I still
um
in a way feel like that's where they keep taking the safe route of like, nope, beginning and end, beginning and end, beginning and end. And like I get it though, at the
maybe
same
that's
time,
better for
because
kids. Although kids
better
are
for
smarter
kids.
than we give them credit for.
Yes,
They can
yes.
handle a cliffhanger. When I watched
Dude,
Avengers
my
Infinity
brother
War and all
loved
the kids cried when Black Panther and Spider-Man turned to dust, they cried. Guess what? They got over it and they were happy when they came back in the next one.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know
Well, I
for a
was just
fact
gonna
about
point to
that,
like
but
me and my
still.
brother, more so my brother, because he was a lot younger than me. Like Pirates of the Caribbean 2 ended with, spoilers for that movie, that's 100 years old at this point. That Jack Sparrow gets eaten by the Kraken, and the movie ends with that. They're
Oh,
like,
really?
oh, Well, then then the real ending is Barbossa comes walking down the stairs, and you're like, oh shit, our guy is
Okay.
back because he's
I
a
haven't
cool.
seen those movies since around the time that they would have
Yeah,
first released on like DVD or
and
something.
that's how that movie ends, and it's like, okay, we're gonna get. Granted, those movies are making a lot more money than in the equivalents that Sonic is making. So I think there's us also that video game movies still, yes, they're having kind of now starting to have a good pedigree, but there's still that like worry I
It
think
could
from
end anytime. That's what you're saying, where they're playing it safe. Where like they officially announced Sonic 4 once they knew, oh yeah, we are definitely going to make a lot of money off this movie. The day before
yeah.
the third one came out,
But
like, and I get it.
I'm like, you really don't know that though. Like, I'm like, I don't know. It's different than the first movie, right? Or even the
Oh,
second movie.
absolutely,
I'm
absolutely.
like, you have Keanu Reeves in this. Like, come on, man. Like, you're gonna at least make your money back and then some. Like, I'm really surprised if you're that nervous about it. But I don't know. Maybe that's just the story they wanted to tell. They didn't even think about doing
Yeah,
something
I
that's a
mean,
continued story. I just know for me personally, that's still like my biggest maybe gripe with this film is like, okay, there's a start and an end, and the stakes felt very high at the end of like we saved the world, all 10 million billion of us, and we cut the moon in almost in half, or at least shaved a chunk off of it, and it's used as a bit. And it was shown in the trailer, and we're like, oh shit, they're gonna like use this as a threat or something, or maybe there was an accident, whatever. Like they just go back to camping afterwards and have a race and everything's fine. I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like you
yeah.
can't have this big of I know it's a
For the moon
kids
thing, by the
movie.
way, they're gonna absolutely pull a Marvel thing. Where I watched the 2023 movie The Marvels recently, and in that spoilers for that movie. Who cares? I
I
actually
don't
enjoyed
care.
that movie a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was more fun than the last few Marvel movies prior to that. I'll say that at the very least. Um, Big plot: the villains are stealing resources from other planets. They steal all of the atmosphere for one planet, the water from this ocean planet, and they're trying to steal the sun from our solar system. And Captain Marvel and her new friends got to stop them, or whatever. They do steal the atmosphere, they do steal the water, etc. And like, so those people are fucked. But it ends up with just like, oh, like some science. We send scientists to them, and they're gonna work it, and they're gonna fix it. So that's just the explanation of like, don't worry about the cataclysmic thing that happened that the villains did that we didn't prevent them from doing, because that's how you get drama and stakes. You got to show that our heroes losing something, because who cares type of thing. They're gonna do it with the moon. And I will say, in that post credits thing, with spoilers again, Amy, you do see a very beautiful shot of the moon, like the way it should be with the split, in the night sky. And I don't know, like it would be, I could see that being a thing, but I can also see them being like, and Gun has stations up there that are electromagnetically tethering the bits moon pieces to the moon, so that no one has to worry. And then that's like a sentence that's said.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the tone with this movie sometimes was very much like, no, this is serious, and then it just turns into a joke at the end, and I'm like, it doesn't land for me personally. Where I'm just like, and that goes back to like, yeah, like
I guess
oh, it's
what?
a kids movie,
Sorry.
but like my thing is, it's like, okay, it doesn't mean you can't not have stakes in it. Like, I don't know, like kids watch Superman shit, and like Superman has stakes. All these Marvel movies, more older ones, have stakes. You know what I mean? Like you said, and I don't know. There's plenty of I think kids can understand that, or could even appreciate like, hey, this is the tone of the film. It's not like all fun and games for Sonic, and like I don't think it needs to always be that either. But I get it, like you run the risk of making it too serious, and then you run into like, well, this is cringy or whatever, and okay, guys, it's Sonic, calm down. But I don't know, like even the trailer I felt like was trying to do this tone of like Shadow's gonna have his revenge, or people are gonna die or whatever. And at the end of the day, it just felt very like, all right, guys, now is a fun day at work. Back to normalcy. And it's just like,
Yeah.
you
I
still
mean,
could have had some impact there. It's like Agent Stone walks away, Eggman sacrifices himself, and then we never see Agent Stone again. And we go back to the camping. We're like, yeah, guys, now we get to have s'mores. And like, I get it. It's trying to be comedic there, but it just doesn't work for me as, I guess, an adult. But like, I feel like if I was a kid, even, I still think I would have been like, okay, so what about the moon? And like,
Well,
Okay,
I
like
guess
you know, what I
to
mean,
be a
just like
little fair, from the
the stakes aren't there
perspective,
for me. Yeah,
all of the threats are gone. That were a part of the movie. Like even like they know Eggman and Shadow like sacrificed themselves, right? Um, so like I guess from that perspective, all is well. I don't know.
I don't know. I just
Um,
wanted more of just like, hey, gun is like they're clearly a bigger thing that they're making it out, at least in this movie compared to definitely the first and now the second movie. Built it up a little bit more, but like this third one, it's like no, gun's like this big organization, yada yada yada, and it's really only there for a setting. It feels like, and to get our characters to even meet Shadow in the first place
and
and
I
give
hope that they're not
backstory.
like a constant thing in all of these movies, because then it feels like a crutch of like an explanation of why they get to have
I think
big
they,
stuff like that.
yeah, my thing is like if they have a big headquarters in London and they have all these agents and stuff, like even the Knuckles show has told us, like yeah, like I'm just like you either got to have your agents of Shield or not. Like I don't know, like it just the balancing of all that stuff is like yes, the hype was cool and all that, the battles and all that, but my main issue is like I still think you could have grounded this in some way, or just been a little bit more consistent of like, okay, what is everyone's motives, and what are really the stakes? Because if the stakes are end of the world, okay, cool. Then we can't be having a campfire and like act like everything's cool at the end either. I don't know. It just doesn't land well for me. Even
No.
in a comedic sense, I don't know. It just doesn't didn't work for me when I feel like most of the tone for most of this movie was Shadow's like, yeah, dude, we're gonna blow up this planet. And then Otto Robotnik's like, yeah, dude, we're gonna blow up this planet. And then Eggman's like, oh, that's not good. Sonic leaves, everything like that. I don't know. Just the domino effect just didn't work for me of like, hey, then this, then this. It's like, all right, we're good. I don't know. Like I wanted more, I guess, with that ending of
I
like
see. I
that's the
have
best way I can describe it, I guess, is that it's just I wanted more from that ending still.
Yeah.
Even after watching a second time where I'm like, really the whole moon thing was a bit? Okay, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't
It
really
didn't
used
feel
because obviously we said this last episode. It was used as a threat, a proof of the threat being real in Sonic Adventure 2. Of like, look, I'm gonna destroy the world or whatever. Look what this laser can do. Half the moon is gone. That's what Amy says. Speaking of Amy, I just want to like I don't know if we have more to say about this movie itself, but I wanted to bring this up in case I forgot. Um, in our first review of this film, talking about this post credit stuff, I was like, oh, like I think like with the way like the Metal Sonic shows up the first one, there's a bunch of them, and then there's Amy who shows up to stop to destroy them or whatever. Like there's a very Terminator type of thing. And I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be a thing where like there's whatever planet the hedgehogs are supposed to be from, because Sonic doesn't know where he came from. Shadow doesn't remember anything prior. Shadow is technically Oklahoman, by the way, because that's where they found him, and he doesn't remember anything
yes.
prior to that. So he is native born Oklahoman, as far as I'm concerned. So Amy's gonna be like, "Hey, we have problems back home, and I need your help," type of thing. After the episode, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about Sonic. I'm like, wait a second, hold on. Amy and Metal Sonic were first introduced in the same game, Sonic CD. The entire game was about time travel. I think this is literally a Terminator story where I think that the Metal Sonics came from the future and that Amy is from the future as well, type of thing. So, if that is the case, I'm not necessarily thinking like Skynet almost winning type of future that they show in Terminator, but like some darker future could be a thing in the next movie
The
where it
next
might
one
be less like everything is fine camping type of thing, and it might be more of like the kind of weight maybe you're thinking about. That's a possibility, but at the same
yeah.
time, I don't want to be here and like the next one is gonna be like the big super serious like epic story, because like we can be strung along this entire time as far as I'm concerned. Because like let's say like with the premise of what this might be, I'm saying right now with this potential Terminator type of story, you don't have to have Shadow in it, and then that's how you have your own Shadow movie. He's doing something else, and then we could be like, well, then that's the one because it's Shadow, so that's one that's going to be more serious because it might be Black Doom, and who knows? At the end of the day, I can easily see them playing it safe until they're like, let's stop for a while, and then the series goes away, and then maybe comes back in like 15 years type of thing. Like they could just do something like that. You know what I mean? There are series
I
all the
feel like in
time
the
where like
modern day
movie after movie
franchise,
after movie. Okay, you know what? Let's stop.
they're already filming the next one. They said like this year for 2027. So
Good.
like, uh, I don't see them ever stopping. I think this is one like just like I don't like
I
this,
just
but
think
yeah,
about
and
Shrek, where it was like those movies printed gold, and then they decided to stop, and then now they're gonna bring it back. You know what I mean? It's like cool. Maybe this
I
is the
guess so.
right
Yeah,
time.
I mean every
Um,
franchise I guess goes like
the
successful
one
one
it's
goes
just
through that, but
Marvel stuff is the one like exception, but because it's so big of an exception, then that feels like that's the through line for
I
entertainment.
and if I remember correctly though, like the Shrek instance was I think the last one or two before it ended was like not doing as well in the box office. Like
Oh,
everything
really?
has its. If I remember correctly, maybe I'm wrong, but I'd have to look at it again because you had there was the first Puss in Boots movie too, even at one point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I don't know. To me, I could see it just being like we're gonna keep this going until we're either not making enough money that we're looking for, and then we could take a pause on it, or just do a TV show or whatever. But the fact that it was like automatically like, okay, making the next one, which makes me think that they have more of a script maybe this time for a third one, or sorry, for a fourth one. Excuse me. Compared to the other movies where I feel like they needed like a year to be like, okay, what the hell are we doing with this? I don't mind the premise of a future like thing, time travel thing necessarily. Um, to me, as long as I think like what characters are going to be doing that, and what are the stakes, and what's the how long you're going to be in the each time travel. I think there's always a pacing issue you run into
right.
with time travel stuff. I think what makes great about Terminator, though, I mean, not
Because
I
they
don't
do
think
that
it'll be
future stuff
exactly,
at the beginning of those movies, and then we spend the
and then
entire time in modern
right
day. Yeah, you're right.
stopping it.
Because here's the thing: this third movie had some issues with the different planes of actions with our characters. That's harder to grasp when it's literal times. Because like then it doesn't matter when because nothing happens at the same time when our two planes of actions are the past and the present or future and present or whatever. You know what I mean? So they could easily have struggle with that as well. But this is also like if you look at it, the unfortunate aspect of this whole thing, but also kind of fun as a nerd, is like there's a lot of business with this. Like, okay, yes, we are making movies about Sonic the Hedgehog. There is a finite number of things, the same stuff the Marvel movies have, except they have like decades of comics to pull from instead of writing their own shit. And because the original comic writers don't get any royalties or anything like that for their stories. We have a finite number of Sonic games and characters to use. But we don't want to string things out too thin because then it's not going to be as exciting, and then we might not actually get to anything that we want to do later that we're saving for. So, like, cool, we get all of the Sonic Adventures 2 stuff out of the way in one movie. It's one of the most important or famous or well-loved games in the series that they could have stretched across two movies, but they chose not to. They can do this time travel stuff that has Sonic CD stuff in it with clearly Metal Sonic and Amy. We know that for a fact. Throw in the Silver the Hedgehog and Blaze the Cat type stuff too. They're all in the future. Get them all together and just do that in one more movie. And think about it. Okay, what's Sonic 5 going to be? Is that going to be more like Sonic Heroes or like they can plan this type of stuff
No, it's gonna be
out.
forces.
that that yeah, because well, I mean, if I'm being really honest, because I don't think or want, for the sake of the story, Robotnik to be in Sonic 4. I was one of the Jim Carrey haters when that first movie's trailer was coming around. Like, I don't really think this is that big of a deal. He's turned me around. He's integral. He doesn't need to be in every single movie. You can have other antagonists. So I don't want him in the next movie. But I guess if you were to bring him back, that is the type of story you would do. Whereas like he's taken over the world. I
Now
guess
that
to
you've
be
said this,
fair.
I already have like a crazy
But like
wild
they're planning out
idea.
some of this
Yep,
stuff with the hopes
for the
of
next
being
one.
able to do it all, but they're also doing it in a fashion where it's like the next one could be the last one. The one after that could be the last one as well. So we're going to shoot our shot and see how much we can cram into a movie that's exciting and say, don't worry, the next one's also going to have more cool stuff as well. Like I know you really wanted Rouge the Bat. I feel like this movie was enough on its own, and like they can then use her as a
Well, they
character
should
in the
have
next
just
one or
killed off
whatever.
Shadow and Eggman halfway through this film and shown the real threat, which
Right,
is,
right.
Rouge the
Even
Bat.
though in the entire time she was undercover working for the government in the video game,
Yes.
but um, uh,
No, I
yeah,
mean, I have a crazy idea now based off all those things you said for how you can do your time travel, but also like add a little bit more detail to it.
and then I have a question for you after that.
Yeah. All right. So here's I guess my first prediction, or I guess with these predictions sometimes they turn into wants, but whatever.
Right,
More of a
right.
prediction because I don't know what I want anymore at this point. I'm kind of just like, cool, we did that.
I got what I
Uh,
wanted. I mean, it wasn't necessarily how I wanted it, but all I
right.
wanted was Sonic versus Shadow. I wanted that this movie. That's why I'm more
Yeah.
critical than because I really wanted this.
Yeah. No, I mean the only thing I want is Rouge the Bat, obviously. No, I think what I could if you're doing the time travel thing, she's from the future. And maybe her opening the portal from the future caused a couple of them to come in because there's just an army of them or something. Maybe it is just like the Terminator where like we only have the ability to send one person back, or whatever it is. But I don't think they'll do that. I think it'll be from the future, but her future she tells us right in the beginning of the movie, like, all right, you need to come with me because we need you because you're not there in the future, and I'm trying to get you from the past to the future. I don't care if it messes up timelines. But all these robots come from Eggman because either you can do one of the Eggmans, doesn't matter because the logic can apply for both. And since this is, a fantasy thing, when the chaos energy, when you get shot into chaos energy, you actually don't die. You get teleported to a different
Oh,
realm.
how Gerald dies in this movie.
Yeah, or you can do Ivo with it too, where it's
The
like, okay, when
explosion.
when the explosion actually created a time hole, blah blah blah, bullshit, doesn't matter. Who cares?
As
Create a
long as the
portal.
explanation is intriguing, it doesn't matter how plausible it is,
Like
right?
the arc itself didn't explode; it imploded,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it reappears. And Eggman's like, "Okay, I saved Earth," and then he realizes,
Oh, and then he sees the Earth, and it's all like Rise of the Machines,
yeah,
like type of thing.
or he's the one that starts the rise of the machines. He's like, "Okay, I wanted to take over Earth. I didn't want to destroy it. I wanted to take over it. Now's my time.
Yeah.
I see Sonic isn't here. This is 5,000 years in the future. Sonic is long dead." Uh,
Can I say something real quick?
I don't know.
Because
Just that's kind of my loose idea
yeah, I mean,
of
classically, yes, he would have been.
Amy is Sonic's great 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 great
That would be
granddaughter
very funny
somehow.
if they do that. Where like she's his descendant, so the because obviously fans want them to be together or something like that.
They're like,
It's
no,
like
we're not doing that. Fuck
I'm
you.
your granddaughter. Obviously, in the games, he makes Metal Sonic, Sonic 2. Before that, he makes say a draft of Metal Sonic. I think he's called Mecha Sonic. He's just one of the bosses in the game. But Metal Sonic is the one everyone latches onto. He made him, blah blah blah. And he's better and faster and better than Sonic, whatever. Um, and so like obviously the implication is like, well, how did he make it? And I bring this up all the time of like people are overanalyzing the trailer when Robotnik's like, I'll make a deal with you on one condition, and then Sonic gives him the quill, and people are like, oh, that's how he's gonna make Metal Sonic. On the second watch, I noticed this again. Point this out. He does not keep the quill because after he zaps Gerald into the chaos energy wall, he licks the thing and then throws it. He gets rid of it. He no longer has that quill, and then the whole thing explodes. But they can write any reason for how he's able to appropriate Sonic's
I
energy
feel like if you're
anyway. To
making,
be fair, but if that is the specific
I mean,
angle people want to say, he didn't keep it.
it looked more like a robot though. Anyways, it doesn't have to have Sonic's power. It's just a robot. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you don't.
he sees it's based off of Sonic. That's just how it is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you don't need to
Um,
like. It doesn't need to be run on Sonic energy or Chaos energy. It could just be like it works. Okay, he's
and
smart.
maybe the reason why there's so many of them is because Metal Sonic in this interpretation isn't equal or better than Sonic. You know what I mean? That's why there's an army of them, right?
I like that more honestly than I don't. I don't really want I guess that's one thing I don't want in the next movie is there to be Sonic versus this one
Another
thing
thing who's
again,
an
kind
equal
of like
his,
him.
yeah,
Yeah,
Knuckles, and then I mean the
I
Japanese
fought
titles
Venom.
for
I
these
fought
movies.
Carnage.
Oh
Who's
yeah,
next? You
the
know, like
Japanese titles for these movies for the second one was Sonic X Knuckles, like in a versus sense, and this one is Sonic X Shadow Tokyo Mission. Still, but here's my question for you.
yeah.
And this is a leading question because I have a want prediction, as you said, out of this whole thing. This movie was titled Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Is the
Yeah.
next movie titled Sonic the Hedgehog 4?
I mean, if you're gonna change it, I feel like you stop doing it after 2 or 3. Like I don't know, you know what I
Right?
mean? Like I feel like even Sonic the Hedgehog 3 didn't need to be called. It could have just been called Sonic 3 and people would have known who the fuck you're
Oh,
talking
sure,
about.
sure. I'm meaning
Uh
more about like the number.
you think
Yeah.
the number is gonna be like in it?
No,
I
okay,
don't
here's my question. Do you think the movie is going to be titled Sonic the Hedgehog 4 or Sonic the Hedgehog with a subtitle Rise of the Machines for Terminator's sake?
dude, I'm a T3 apologist. I loved that movie when I was younger. It scared me in a good way of like, yeah, dude, what if the computers do take over? You know what
My
I mean?
first
Just
one
like
was the Christian Bale movie. I saw that in theaters. I
I've seen
was
that once. And I do not remember what the fuck happens in it.
either.
Yeah, I'm a T3 apologist. But no, Price of the Machines. That'd be funny.
I mean, you just
I mean,
like the
you know, it'd
T3
be
because
funny
it
if you
had
want to be really,
the
if you want to do more
dominatrix
comedy.
Terminator in it. You just like the
You're right.
Lady Terminator.
You're right. I mean, T2 is still top 25 for me for sure, for sure.
They should just rip it off. And then
That's what I'm
actually,
saying. Call it Rise of the
I
Machines.
don't want to
Anyways,
replace Jeff Fowler, but it'd be very funny if James Cameron produced this movie.
I mean, now that you said this, I would love them to call it Rise of the Machines and just really like be straight up, be like, "Yup, Terminator is
I mean, it just
happening."
the way this post credits really feels like yes, Sonic is being attacked by a killer robot that's focused on himself, and then someone from the future
My
saves
fear,
him.
my fear is
You
we
know,
don't get any Metal Sonic. That was it. It was
oh
just gonna
my
be
god, that would be such a letdown. That would
but
be
then
such a
Amy's
letdown.
in it, and Amy's like, "Oh yeah, those are just some robots that Tales from the future messed up on. But anyways, we need you to come to the
That
future
would feel
because
insulting, and I don't think that they would go that route. You know what I mean? But I will say this: they did the same thing they did with Shadow, with the reveal of Amy, not voicing her, so that they're not stuck with a voice actor. Because while I think that Colleen O'Shaughnessy is obviously the perfect voice for Tails, and that there might not be a lot of actors that can hit that register for that like 5-year-old kid boy that like she's able to do. I did always get the sense that they felt that they locked themselves into that by having her voice Tails in the post credits for Sonic 1 instead of just
yeah,
showing
because they
Tails.
did not think that there was going to be a
No,
sequel.
obviously, right? And so like for this one I even joked last time like she's wearing a cloak so that they don't even have to commit to an outfit yet. You know what I mean? It's
She's going to
just
take off that cloak in the first 10 seconds you see her, and she'd be like, I'm out of hiding, or it didn't even
something
say
like
anything.
that.
She's just going to take it
Because
off and
she's
be
a
like,
resistance, she's a member leader or
I'll say
whatever, and
this.
so she
I'll
needed
say
to
this.
hide in the future.
Call it Sonic 4 Resistance. Sonic 4 Resistance. Sonic 4 the Resistant. You get to play on the words a little bit there. Sonic 4 Resistance. He goes in the future. Even if you don't do like, I'm okay with them not doing any present stuff, and they just go to the future, and then you can just you can establish whole new setting and everything where it's a rundown Doomsday City or whatever, and like Rouge the Bat's there, Gator Guy is there, and all our friends are there.
I'm purposely not going to correct you on the name of the
I always forget
crocodile,
his name.
just because I know a TikTok commenter will get mad at it. Here's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
you name it: Sonic, Fantastic, in the awful Fantastic Four thing, where the A in Fantastic,
No,
the second A is the number
dude,
4,
no.
Fant Four Stick.
It's gonna be called Sonic the Hedgehog 4
I mean,
because
honestly, Sonic Forces would work out too.
four.
But I don't want. That's like the worst 3D Sonic game. Worst Sonic game.
I'm imagining the logo like overthinking it and they do the number 4 and then write
Says,
CES.
yeah. Yeah,
You
I
know
mean
what I mean? Be
it's
like
tough,
Sonic
right?
Forces.
Right, right. I mean, because I also
I don't
thought
know.
like it'd be really dumb to say Sonic for Future. Like Future is starts with the number 4. I don't know, something stupid like
Sonic
that.
for the future. I
All
mean,
I want to
I no,
say, because I said this
yeah,
as a leading question about the name, is that I really respect the hell out of media in general, especially uber popular media, where they need to make safe choices to prolong the money flow. I really appreciate when media sequels just are like Media 2, Media 3, Media 4, Media 5. I appreciate
Fast and
that.
Furious.
But when we get into like, Media 4 subtitle, like, okay. But like like all the Marvel movies, like none of them have numbers except for like Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, which were like way early. You know what I mean? Everything is like I can look and be like, which one of these goddamn Ant-Man movies is second? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Eventually, it will reach that point, right? And so for this one, they could easily get Sonic the Hedgehog subtitle. The next movie, Sonic the Hedgehog subtitle. I was looking at a list of PlayStation 2 games that I may or may not, was like acquiring. I'm like, which of these Armored Core games is first? Because there are a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, but then there's a lot that are subtitles. Which, like, as someone who like did not engage, then looking at a list that's just alphabetical, I'm like, I don't. Which is in order, and that's a very dumb thing.
You know,
Because guess
another
what? You
great example
Google
of that
what is
is
the
that
order of the Sonic movies. I get it, but still, like, I just appreciate the hell out of the balls to say Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Sonic the Hedgehog
you know
5.
it's a great example of that. A franchise I like is all the Planet of the Apes movies. Good luck
Oh
remembering.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
even I have to still be like, at least I can separate the new versus the old. But even the old, I have to be like, hey, there's 5. I'm like, Planet. I'm like, Beneath. I'm like, and then I have to like double. I'm always remember like I always switch 1 or 2, and it's like Escape, and I think then it's hold on, Planet, Beneath, Escape, Battle. No, sorry, Conquest, then Battle. There you go, I got it. But you know what I mean? Like, only I know that because I've watched them and I guess put enough effort into memorizing them. But
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? Like, you're right because like, what if they just start doing subtitles? Then you get into yeah. I mean, if you
Alien
played
actually did
on
the
with
same
it,
thing. I mean, a lot of movies and stuff like that does that. Video games, especially. What's the order for Assassin's Creed?
I couldn't tell
What's
you,
the order
dude.
for
I don't
Call
even
of
know what the
Duty?
well, I couldn't even tell you what the second one is. I just know Assassin's Creed, and then the last
And
one is
Assassin's Creed
coming
2,
out.
to be honest. But
Is it?
but then there was Assassin's Creed
How
2,
many Black Ops are there?
Assassin's Creed 3. No, I'm sorry. In between 2 and 3, there was Brotherhood, and then Revelations, and then 3,
Where's Black Flag?
and
Is
then
that
4 Black Flag. But there was a Vita only release called Liberation, and then 4 Black Flag, and then at the same week there was Assassin's Creed Rogue for old consoles and Unity for new consoles, because this was a year after
Hmm.
the PS4 and Xbox One launched. And then blah blah blah. And then like, yeah, for Call of Duty, yes, there are 6 Black Opses because they numbered them all. But guess what? There's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. You know what I mean? Not to be confused with Call of Duty Advanced Warfare and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, because they're unrelated. They don't count.
Count.
They don't count. And also, Call of Duty 3 or Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 subtitle for the Nintendo DS also doesn't count. Don't forget World War II and Vanguard, which is also a World War II game.
I mean, I remember
Or
when World War
1,
II
2,
came out.
3, and all their sub games, because they're also World War II games. We need to make
I
sure you
remember
know
World
this
War
one's
II
World
came
War
out, and
II.
I'm like, you're gonna basically do a remake of Black Ops and all that, but you won't do World at War. Cowards,
Oh yeah, and even
cowards.
World War. They called that game World War II because people were getting critical of Infinite Warfare Space. So they're like, whatever you were going to call this game, just call it World War II. Boots on the ground.
So
Sonic
I
could
liked World
easily
at
be
War.
like
I'm
that.
like that's a good title. World at
Yeah, I
War.
mean, right? Um,
I know. I'll just say this because I'm so smart. Sonic for Resistance. It sounds cool, and you still have the 4 in there, but then you have the subtitle, it's Best of Both Worlds, and it kind of sums up what obviously the next film is, because folks here on this show, we predict everything with 100% accuracy. We knew what the movie was going to be, and that's why we were disappointed.
Absolutely. One thing about naming, two more things about naming. Fuck it. If you are going to change your naming scheme,
you're gonna name your kid.
You're going to change your naming scheme.
Oh,
you then stick with the new change, because boy howdy do I hate when there is media 2, media 3, media subtitle, media 5. I forget what it was, but there was something like that where, like, yeah, the fourth one. I mean,
isn't Fast and Furious technically?
But they always do play on their names, so it's fine, and I don't care.
But it was the Fast and the Furious, then it was Fast and Furious, and then 5, then 6.
Yeah,
and then F8 or 7, then F8.
Well, no, Fast 5 written out, and then Fast and Furious 6, right, and then Furious 7, then the Fate of the Furious. There's no number, and then F9, the Fast Saga. Then Fast X for Fast 10.
I want to know who pitches the titles, and if they forget when they're pitching, and they're like, fuck it. They're like, we should just call this one Fast 7. But we didn't call the last one that.
Before. Yeah. Oh shit! I forgot what the second thing about names was that I wanted to say. Other than that, I love names. They're really great. I was
big fan.
I was gonna say, because like once you change, stick with it. And
wow, Ethan's saying you cannot change your name.
That's
crazy.
Other thing, no, when you do change, you stick with that change. You don't go back to the previous naming scheme.
So no Ocho Cinco from Chad Johnson.
But at the same time, I thought it's really dumb that we hit Jack and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. First game, it's a name and then a subtitle. Second game, Jack 2, Roman numeral. Third game, Jack 3, written with the Arabic numeral 3, and you know what I mean, the normal number 3, for all intents and purposes. I love that. And because if you, just, I don't know. I'm a very hypocritical person in some of my thoughts. I both don't want that, but also think,
dare
you know, if you're
you
have
a gray area on some things? That's crazy.
I know.
That's so toxic.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was a movie we watched twice now. And we hope you enjoyed this review and the next review and the review after that. You're not going to hear us talk about this movie for another year, besides predictions and if
it might be dropped in the other movie reviews. Maybe we'll be like, in context, but
yeah.
Maybe.
Actually, yes, it will be because we did mention it in the next movie review here on the channel on the Sonic Movie Show. Devin, before we go, did you have anything else you want to bring up about this movie? I know I'm wrapping us up here, but if you had anything, big final statement you have to say about this movie to really cap off the drama, the saga, the definitive era that we have lived through, let me know. Let us know.
I really did like it. I did. But like we said at the top, I think it's totally fair to be really critical of the things you do like. If anything, you should. I think it helps, even if they won't listen maybe to us, but they did from the very first movie when they said, hey, this design sucks ass, and they did it.
Very first episode.
I feel like it should be good to challenge yourself creatively and whatever, and I hope that they like what they saw in this, but I don't know. I think there's still a way to do more Sonic stuff, but also make it, I don't want them to go down this rabbit hole, what it feels like they're starting to do, which is Marvelize this movie. I explained that way more in the first review we did of this, but like I said, I liked it a lot more the second time. In a way, I'm curious to watch the next first and second movie again, just to see if it does it feel consistent as a whole trilogy and all that. But I'm also very thankful we got it, because I never in a million years would have, in a way, who knows if we would still be doing this show if the Sonic first one just bombed, and then if they
kept that initial design, there was no way we would have gotten a second, let alone third movie.
But I'm saying, even if they did redo it, spin-off. Even if they redid it and it just no one cares, dude. No one cares about Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah. You know what I mean? Who knows? So in a way, it is pretty crazy to think about that we're here in 2025 talking about a third Sonic the Hedgehog movie in a world where video game movies typically, outside of Resident Evil, the live action ones, don't get sequels, even if they are decent. We haven't gotten another Detective Pikachu movie, for example, and that came out in the same year.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just because
You know,
people like all walked away being like, yeah, okay, weird.
yeah. I don't know. It's just I'm like I said, I am grateful for it, but at the same time, this is the third one in now. I want to see Jeff Fowler grow. I want to see him and his team grow. And I just want to see what they do. But at the same time, I'm excited because I get to see what they do next. And I think with the potential of the ending, they really could go in a million different directions. Where Amy isn't even necessarily the focus necessarily, but just like they can go in a million different directions. And I hope they use that in a way as a way to like, okay, let's really think outside the box. We don't even have to even follow a game. We can do so many different things with this. You know, yeah, I just want to see it be better though in the fourth one because yeah, like you're doing your fourth one. You know, we any fan of anything I think can always be critical of the things they like and be like, yeah, I think I deserve more. Maybe not deserves, but the best word. But you know what I mean? Like you can expect more. It's okay. Yeah, it still hit hype, but you could still expect more. So,
Absolutely. I'm
um,
going to
I
said
don't
it
know.
better myself. But one thing we can expect and deserve is for you to like, subscribe, and share below. One more thing. You didn't put a score on this.
Oh
You didn't
yeah,
put
that's right.
a
I was
thing on
gonna
it. If I
say
were to give this a number score, all three of these movies are a 3 out of 10 because until I get a scene where Obama chuckles and says, "You mean the Chaos Emeralds?" Actual Barack Obama, then they're not that leading up to the potential they could be. But
with Rouge the Bat next to him, be
yes,
laughing with him.
absolutely. Well, that's who he's talking to. Because she's like, you know what I came for, and he chuckles because we think, oh, is she trying to
You
be
mean the Chaos
flirtatious?
Emeralds?
Yeah, exactly. We need to put a letter score on this, and this is weird to me. I'll speak first here.
Oh, our tiers, right?
Our tier
For maybe
list.
this might be someone's first episodes. Maybe we should quickly say what the
Right,
tiers are.
right. So on the Sonic Movie Show, we review a whole bunch of video game movies, which you can watch at home and on your mobile device. Like, subscribe, and share.
Not at the theater, unfortunately. Maybe one
Yeah,
day.
not one day. But you can watch our reviews on YouTube here. It's where the preferred way to watch and listen. And we have like a couple seasons with like competition giraffe type thing going on for it. But just overall, we watch a lot of movies based off video games, directly based off specific video games, and we review them. Sonic is the name of this show. That's where we initially came from, but we moved and expanded onwards. And for those reviews, at the end we give them a letter grade that is F through A, with an S at the top being the best. That is the highest rank you could get, the S rank up there. Um, and Sonic 1, we gave that an A tier. Put that in the A
We did.
tier because we were like, hey, um, despite the fact that this is a very tame and for lack of a better word, a conservative film, not wanting to go too Sonic-y and just keeping it with the same kind of safe Hollywood bed of CG cartoon character in the real world, fish out of water type of thing that movie was, which we predicted. We still thought it had enough heart and it was a lot of fun. And compared
It was
to
a
the
fun journey.
contemporary video game movies, we're like, hey, thumbs up, A. This is an A. We are going to see, we would find out, a lot of very worse movies. For the second movie, we're like, this is better. They're doing more what we want, even if some stuff doesn't hit. It feels like it's special. It feels like, how are we getting this? We're seeing Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles fight the Death Egg robot from the end of Sonic 2. Like, this is just cool. And we gave that an S rank. And even though I personally am sitting here and being like, this is better than 2 and 3, or 2 and 1. The Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is better than its predecessors and the Knuckles show. I don't even know if we gave that a tier spot. I think it would have been like a D, I think. Even though this is the best of the entire Sonic cinematic universe, I don't think that necessarily gives it an S just because we think it's better. Expectations are higher, and what do you do with what you are given? So I'm actually struggling to necessarily find a place for it. Maybe it's sacrilege to say in my heart of hearts 1 and 2 would be lowered and then this would be put up above them because honest to God, right now I'm leaning towards B. Is that strange, Devin? What did you
Yeah, so
think? I know I sprung this on you, but
no,
what
I
did
was
you
no,
think?
I've been thinking about this since the first one. I think we even mentioned it in the first one that our like first gut reaction, was around a B. And it is weird, I mean, for me, I'm having more of a hard time putting this even above the second one, just on me personally, because I feel like the second one, it just upped the ante from the first one of everything I did like, and it still felt grounded enough where like, yeah, Sonic's an alien who has these powers, and Knuckles is here, but it didn't I don't know, like it was still a little bit safe with like going back to Green Hills and everything, but I feel like they opened the door of like, here's the Chaos Emeralds, here's everything in that movie, like in a way that felt pacing wise really good. We had a whole sub part of the movie of with the wedding and everything, and I thought that was really fun. Uh, Compared to this movie where it felt like, hey, yeah, the human characters are back, but we're gonna try to get the shadow, but even then, some of the shadow stuff didn't really hit as much as we would want. It was cool, and I think that first opening section with shadow was perfect, but we needed that happening more often in the movie, as opposed to him
Yeah,
saying "boo" at one point, and then you have a fight uh, on the moon. It really is only like three times he's like really interacting with the characters. Uh, and I feel like in the second movie, the fights felt more like fights. You know what I mean? Like there was impact to those
the
fights,
Sonic
whatever.
versus Knuckles one in the labyrinth zone, the temple
Yeah, yeah.
place. Yeah,
I don't know. Just like the pacing to me is a complete like picture in terms of pacing, everything that goes into that movie. The second one to me just feels better, and that's why I have a hard time even for me personally putting it above that right now. But the third movie did have like a lot of like when there was action, there was like it was sick, it was cool for the most part.
yeah,
But the second one just feels more like a good like yeah, you made a good movie, like just generally speaking. Like even
yeah.
if
A
you're
better
taking the
package overall.
when this felt like if you're not a big Sonic fan and you just went and see this, like I feel like I don't know, it's hard for me to put like I as a movie itself, I think there's some movie issues I have with this. But on a video game movie curve, which is what we're doing here, the bell curve, so to speak, that we kind of created. We have a lot of movies in the C category. But yeah, I mean the B definition has at this point pretty much been like has more good than bad. And we did criticize this movie quite a bit. And there is some not I don't know if they're major issues, but they're issues that aren't because I think when you're in A tier, you have some issues, but the issues are like kind of you hand wave them away. When this movie, it's harder for me to hand wave it away. So that's why I agree with you. I think this is a B
Yeah,
tier video game movie, and on a movie scale, I've been doing Letterbox now. I gave it a 3.5 stars because I was like, as a movie itself, when I think I would maybe probably give Sonic Movie 2 a 4 because I don't know, just it did more for
on their
me on a
own for
movie
what they
thing.
are, I think you're right. Like I would still stand by S and A for two and one. Like
It feels
not
weird to move those down. You know what I mean?
right.
Considering our definitions of all of
Because like
them.
yes, the
So
first movie I remember like a lot of disappointment for like, man, they could have just done a lot of actual Sonic stuff in this movie. But I knew going in what the movie was, and like it was what it was, and what it was an A for me. Two, I wanted more, I got more. They left the door open for even more, and the third movie here was all about that more, all of what I wanted, and it didn't deliver. Um, yeah, I mean, you said the Shadow Boo thing. We didn't really talk too much about Shadow again this time around because most of the stuff stands from our first review. But like, yeah, I could have seen him do more agency. He should have broke into the gun headquarters and not had the Robotnik stance. I actually don't like the TikTok trend. Sorry. Um, the stupid dance. But so like I do stand by because like even though this movie is more of what I wanted, right, from one and two, as just a movie on its own, what it is a Marvel movie esque fight, action, like more quippy type of comedy, interactions with villains in that type of sense. Then like obviously, yeah, Robotnik being the villain in the first two needs to that, but whatever. Um, what I got wasn't as satisfying for what it was as the first two. weird for me to say I still like this movie more. It just that doesn't necessarily mean it's better. My favorite Sonic game is Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah. This is
That
one of the
doesn't mean
few
it's the best
times
Sonic game, just because I like it more.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
I
best
think
ones is Frontiers.
is this the first that I can think of though on our list, to be fair, where we've said we've liked something maybe more, generally speaking, or at least maybe more in your case, but where we've said that, but then it winds up being lower than maybe the other thing from that franchise. Like I'm thinking of like the Resident Evil movies, like that
They all
first
blur
one we gave,
together. For
but like we
me,
really liked a lot of the action more. For example, we got
yeah,
more of the stuff we did like from the first movie and those movies,
we
but
need to
then
do a
we started,
rewatch.
but we started being like, but they keep changing the story, they keep changing the plot, they keep changing
Right?
characters and their
They don't know
meanings and all
what they're
that
doing.
stuff,
Yeah,
and that's what kind of hurts. It's like, yeah, we got more of the action, which is cool, but like this movie's a mess. And I feel like that. I'm not saying that's what's happening in this one necessarily, because I don't think this movie's a mess by any means, but it is very just. It doesn't have the same like almost consistency, or just it doesn't gel. Like it gelled a little bit better the second time. I'll give it that. But compared to the second movie, where like the first time we watched it, I was like, "Yo, this is like just on a movie standpoint, it's pretty good. Like this is like it's well paced, things make sense, everything is flowing in a way that is fun, and it's for all ages." When this movie felt more like this is for the Sonic fans, and less about like what the other two movies were more about to me, were like these are family comedy action movie, almost like a Home Alone kind of style movie, where we're going for that. Versus this movie felt more like, yeah, a Marvel movie, when the last two movies felt more like their own kind of family comedy with action elements to it. Like I think Home Alone's actually probably the best example I could think of. You know what I mean? Just like the vibes are different from the second to the third one for
sure.
me.
Right, right.
And I think that's where it makes this really tough.
The second movie has a better
And you can
heart
like
with
the
it.
vibes. You can
Yeah,
like the vibes, but from a video game movie standpoint and a movie standpoint, I feel like the second one's just a better just
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like,
All right.
even if it
I think
doesn't
it's
have all the Sonic
official.
stuff in it, but that's crazy to say. This is
Sonic
weird. This
the
is a weird one.
Hedgehog 3 in the B tier here on the Sonic Movie Show.
Which is still good, by the way, folks.
Oh
If people
yeah.
are like, boo, like, no, anything a being above, we're like, hell yeah,
Listen,
we
there
had a good
are more
watch.
established critics who are going to give this who already gave it, I'm sure, much lower of a score. Be mad at them. You know what I mean? We can want better, and we deserve better, and I hope we get better. So thank you. Well, that's not what I wanted to show. Hey, that was our fantasy critic you saw briefly on the screen there. Hey, you out there, I know you love this review so much. Click that subscribe button, like the video, write down below your thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I'm probably going to link that first review over there in that box. So, thank you. Every week, video game movie reviews or other types of things we do on the channel. We got, in this season, 4 movies left. The next review is Bayonetta Bloody Fate. And then our final movie each, Devin, David, and myself. I almost thought I said my name already. Devin, David, and myself. Reviewed 6 movies each. We got our one last pick after Bayonetta. So watch these movies, watch these reviews, like and subscribe. Thank you very much. And as always, gotta go fast.
Don't tell me you got a catchphrase.